Hello everyone and welcome to the Anime Zillia, and thank you for joining me as we talk about episode 8 of the God of High School, the anime series. And this episode was a roller coaster of emotions as we had a lot of sad music and some very touching backstories. So wipe away those tears as we take a look at episode 8, which focuses on Mori Jin and Elipo Park. So we start off by learning more about Elipo's character, and it turns out that he himself has Emperor's Haki, or as they call it, Conqueror's Haki. Whichever you want to go with, they're both correct. But you'll only get that reference if you're a One Piece fan. If not, let's just move on. In all seriousness, this character seems like a formidable opponent, as he displays some very cool and interesting skills in combat, and he seems to be able to plan strategically in order to best utilize his team members when planning for the best possible result. One thing that was mentioned that I was a little bit disappointed at was that in the fight that we see at the beginning, we see that his team member loses. And then when his second team member goes into it, which turns out to be his cousin, we hear the commentator state that in the first match, Elipo strategically planned a plan of action for the first competitor, and he's lost. And now he's doing the same thing with his cousin in the second round, but we didn't see the first round strategic plan being laid out, which I thought was a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, it's probably due to time constraints. Nevertheless, let's move on. The two bits of backstory for Elipo's character were handled brilliantly, and you have this emotional kind of flashback in where Elipo feels alone and abandoned after being left by his mother when his father passes away, forcing him to live with his uncle in an unknown environment surrounded by people that he doesn't know, people that he can't interact with because he just doesn't have the courage or the confidence to do so. He's only little in this phrase, and seeing little Elipo was actually really adorable. But the scene with Taijin appearing and telling little Elipo about his grandfather and how great of a man he was, yet he was really strong, but not as strong as Taijin, I thought was great. This scene put a smile on my face, as little Mori and little Elipo are just really adorable, and it's good seeing this little kid smile after feeling so lonely and distant from everybody else for such a long time. This scene was quite short, but at the same time it had a very good emotional impact that kind of made you go, you can almost relate to Elipo. We've all been to a situation where we've been thrown into a place that we don't know, or people we don't know. And some of us, we can't quite communicate with others, so we just stay to our own devices. And of course, when we try, we get told by people that we look up to, or that we think care about us, that we're no good. Maybe that's a little bit too specific, but you get the idea. Overall, the other piece of backstory, because I mentioned there were two, so the second part links with the character of Tyke, which is the blue-haired antagonist character we see at the end of episode 6, and this scene just builds on their rivalry, as they both share a similar kind of hatred towards each other. We don't know why just yet, but the anime is doing a great job at building up these two characters to hopefully, at some point, clash. And it might just be myself, but I thought the animation in this shot was absolutely amazing. Overall, a really good first appearance for Elipo's character, and I'm keen to see how they progress with his character moving forward, because he does seem like a very interesting one, and I'd like to know more about him, and just see some more about his skills and his moveset. I think it'll be really cool. Okay, so let's move on to the second character of focus in this episode, Mori Jin. This episode seemed to basically be showing him down in the dumps for some reason. The whole situation surrounding his grandfather has him a little bit uneasy. But note this, the fact that Marjin Park mentions that Taijin has been possibly captured or is possibly dead doesn't seem to worry Mori the most. I love that line where Mori's like, have you met my grandfather? I'll be more worried about his opponents. That line was great, because it shows that Mori Jin has confidence in his grandfather, so we can almost rule out the possibility of him being sad because his grandfather is missing. Of course, he is sad because he wants to spend time with his grandfather. He loves his grandfather. So that obviously adds to a little bit of it. But there's more of a psychological issue in this episode with Mori Jin. And it ties in with his birthday. And also his desire to get stronger. So, happy birthday, Mori, but why not so happy? Well, do you remember that big painting inside Mori Jin's bedroom? It's got a little Mori with his grandfather, and Mori's not looking too happy. And we learned in this episode that this photo was taken on his 6th birthday, just after being told that his grandfather was basically leaving him. Yes, that's right, his grandfather was going to leave him when he was 6 years old. So it's also safe to assume that because of this event, Mori Jin doesn't like birthdays. It just reminds him of his grandfather leaving him, forcing him to live on his own. Thus, obviously not being a big fan. That's understandable. Until, obviously, today, as Mira and Dawe arrive to celebrate with him, and he finally realizes the importance of friendship. Oh god, that sounds a bit like a shonen manga then, doesn't it? Okay, moving on. Now, I mentioned the fact is that he has a desire to get stronger. This is also a psychological matter that Mori is dealing with in this episode. Now, this again links back to that flashback that we see just before Taijin leaves Mori. Mori states that he's 6 years old now, so he can fight off any bad guy. He's strong. And obviously, his grandfather says, no. You need to go and make friends and have fun. I'll go and take the bad guys away. You just be happy. And obviously, if Mori Jin wants to get stronger, he's trying to get stronger so he can protect his grandfather and make his grandfather kind of go, yes, you're strong enough to stay with me because these strong individuals are coming after me and I can't protect you and myself. But if you're this strong, you can protect yourself and I can protect myself so we can be together. That is Mori Jin's thought processes when he's trying to get stronger. And of course he just wants to beat the other two competitors that are like being built up in this competition. But that again is a story for another time. So how unlucky can Q get? He gets his pay suspended for removing his limiter in episode 7, but then shortly after the executives get given permission to remove their limiters when facing Nox members. Because it looks like a war is on its way, and this comes in the form of Nox. And thanks to more damage being created by Q himself, which seems a little bit silly, but again, he was in a bit of a rage at the time, his suspension has now been made 9 months. But not all hope is lost for the poor man, because Dawe offers to cook him food in exchange for Q teaching him how to access borrowed power. Now, they do call it something like Jokarachi or something in the anime, but I'm going to refer to it as borrowed power because that's how it is in the original source, and it's just easier for me to say than getting the pronunciation horribly wrong, like I probably just did then. And it's cool to see that Dawe wants to get stronger, but did you notice that in this episode, Dawe wants to get stronger similar to how Mori Jin wants to get stronger? Dawe seems to believe that Mori doesn't trust him or think he's reliable enough to basically share what's bothering Mori Jin. So Dawe wants to get stronger to the point where Mori would be able to think, oh, Dawe is a reliable character or the reliable person. I'll tell him what's on my mind and then, he can help me out. This again obviously relates some parallels to how Mori feels towards his grandfather. Mori feels like his grandfather doesn't think Mori's dependable enough to be with him. So I like that kind of similarity there. It's pretty cool. Now, Dawe does have a lot of spare time on his hands because he got suspended thanks to interfering with Taik's match, which obviously happened in episode 7. So, yeah, hopefully Q actually delivers on his part of the bargain and we see Dawe get even stronger. And fear not, if you were worried last week because you heard that Sim's wife and kid got killed by that Nox member, they're safe. Although this has been a bit of a upsetting time for Q and a bit unfortunate, at least he got reassurance to the fact that Sim, wife and kid, were actually safe, and the ones that died were just puppets created by P's power. So I thought that was a nice little bit of news to share with you all, to brighten up those spirits. I don't know. Overall, this episode was really well put together. It showed us some great moments and gave us some good information about the characters that were involved in this episode. And the fight at the beginning wasn't really a fight to be taken too seriously, as it was just setting up future matches. This was a little bit unfortunate, however, because I really like the character of Guy? This guy. And to see that he doesn't have a big presence in the anime as of yet was a little bit disappointing for me personally. But he did have some good one-liners in this episode, which you can see right here. Not going to say them because YouTube. And I just enjoyed his character in the webtoon series and a little bit in this one. But if we had a bit more screen time with him, I like him a lot more. We had some good and consistent animation throughout this episode. I really do want to see Mori and elipo going all out against each other in like sort of future episodes, because this episode does tease that a little bit, as we have them little bit of a sparring match in this episode, and we get that fight scene from the intro. So hopefully some good things are to come in the future. But anyway, I want to know what your thoughts on this episode is in the comment section down below. Let me know all of your kind of opinions on it, and we'll have a discussion. So, you know, if I miss anything, you can just call me out on it. Say, hey, James, you missed some stuff. What do you think about this? They changed this and this. Unfortunately, if there are changes, I can't remember. I'm caught up with the webtoon series as it is. So trying to remember way back when they were actually high school students, it's a little bit difficult for me, unfortunately. And speaking of high school students, I'll leave you with one last question as well. How is this guy a high school student? Like, look at him. He looks like he's just come from the military. But yes, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new so you never miss a video from me. You'll get more anime and webtoon content on a weekly basis. So I hope you look forward to that. Other than that though, stay safe, be happy, have a good day. Arigato, matane. Bye.